Chapter 1296. Yi Qianming immediately went behind Luo Qingtong and fiercely patted her dantian on her back. In an instant, a force suddenly entered Luo Qingtong's body, as if it had been stimulated from her dantian. With a boom, that force flowed through the meridians in her body and mixed with Luo Qingtong's power, rushing towards the barrier that had risen up in her body. Luo Qingtong was about to withdraw her power when she suddenly felt a new force in her dantian. Before she could react, that force had already flowed through her meridians and blasted towards the barrier of the martial ancestor realm. Luo Qingtong's heart was suddenly filled with joy. For a moment, she did not have the time to investigate where this force came from. She immediately mobilized the power in her body and blasted it towards the barrier together with that force. Bang! After receiving such an impact, the barrier immediately shattered into pieces with a bang. A new force, completely different from the previous martial emperor realm power, rose from Luo Qingtong's body and filled her meridians. Martial ancestor realm. Luo Qingtong's heart was filled with joy and she immediately opened her eyes. Whoosh! In her eyes, the blood-red aura that was originally like a mist that filled Qingshui's eyes became even more intense. In the depths of her pupils, there seemed to be a bright red color that dyed the center of her pupils red. It was like a small, blood-red sun. Finally, I've almost recovered half of my strength from before. Luo Qingtong's heart was filled with joy. Wherever her eyes passed, all the sounds of insects and birds, the sound of wings flapping, and even the trembling and falling of leaves were all vivid in her mind. In Luo Qingtong's eyes, it was like a 3D projection that presented all the scenes that she swept her gaze across. As long as Luo Qingtong wanted to see everything within a radius of 100 meters, she could immediately see everything down to the tiniest detail. In her previous life, when she was at her peak, Luo Qingtong did not even need to use a trace of mental strength to monitor the scene within 100 meters of her at any time. She could even sense that something was wrong with the slightest tremor in the wind. Although she had not recovered to her peak strength, it was already not bad. At least, she did not need to use so much mental strength to use the basic ability of her eye technique. She could save the excess mental strength to do other things. Luo Qingtong thought of this and suddenly smiled. This purple heart enlightening fruit is indeed a good thing. As Luo Qingtong said this, she suddenly felt something soft lying on her back. Luo Qingtong touched her back and grabbed it. She immediately smiled. This little mischievous boy, are you tired? Luo Qingtong looked at the little silver fox lying on her hand. The little silver fox seemed to be asleep. Its eyes were tightly shut and its belly rose and fell. Its soft, fluffy fur also rose and fell with its breathing. Yi Qianxian reluctantly sent a trace of energy from this young fox's body into Luo Qingtong's body to help her break through to the martial ancestor realm. After that, he immediately fell asleep from exhaustion. Luo Qingtong looked at the little silver fox sleeping soundly and immediately tapped its little nose. Chapter 1297. She thought that it was the final accumulation of the purple jade fruit's power that helped her break through. After all, the silver fox's claws were too soft. Luo Qingtong didn't notice it patting her during her breakthrough. More importantly, whether it was a human or a fox, the power of different individuals was exclusive. If someone else's power entered her body, Luo Qingtong would immediately sense it. However, Yi Qianxian's power was an exception to her. Even if you beat her to death, Luo Qingtong would never have thought that Yi Qianren would turn into a cute little fox and stay by her side. Therefore, she didn't even think about it. Luo Qingtong carried the sleeping little fella to the bed and placed it on the mattress. The sky outside was already bright. Luo Qingtong's breakthrough took almost 1 day and 1 night. She cleaned up and prepared to leave Family Hu to find Su Yu and the others. At this moment, the guards of Family Hu's main courtyard came looking for her. Hu Fei had woken up. Hu Yinyang and Hu Zhongtian asked her to go over and take a look. Luo Qingtong thought for a moment and ordered someone to guard her courtyard. Then, she brought the Gu Poison Queen and the guard to the main courtyard. Hu Yinyang and Hu Zhongtian were already waiting in the main courtyard. Master. Hu Yinyang saw Luo Qingtong and immediately bowed. There were only the three of them in the room. Hu Zhongtian didn't know her identity outside, and she wasn't afraid that someone would spread the news of Luo Qingtong's identity. Luo Qingtong looked at her and nodded. Then, her gaze moved to Hu Fei, who was behind the two of them. Hu Fei was half sitting on the bed. His face was still pale, but his complexion was much better than before, when he was as lifeless as a corpse. After the Gu Poison Queen was removed, the life and soul energy in Hu Fei's body were no longer absorbed. Naturally, he slowly recovered. However, after all, Hu Fei's life and soul energy had been absorbed for so many years. His mental energy couldn't be compared to a normal person's. Not only that, after being bedridden for more than 10 years, his muscles had atrophied so much that he couldn't get out of bed and walk around. His strength had also been completely wasted in these 10 years of being bedridden. An ordinary person wouldn't have been able to take it. However, Hu Fei didn't look too dispirited. He had already learned everything from Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yanmyang. Knowing that he had been harmed by Bai Feng and had been bedridden for more than 10 years like a cripple, Hu Fei felt extremely vexed. He hated himself for not telling Hu Zhongtian about Bai Feng all those years ago. This way, their Hu clan wouldn't be so miserable. But fortunately, it wasn't too late for the Hu clan to wake up now. Looking at Luo Qingtong's gaze, he struggled to get up, but he couldn't move. In the end, he could only bow to her and say, "Thank you, ninth young master, for saving my family Hu from danger. Family who will never forget young master's great kindness." Luo Qingtong looked at him and nodded slightly. This Hu Fei wasn't bad. Do you want to regain your strength from back then, or even become stronger? Luo Qingtong looked at him. The latter was stunned for a moment, then suddenly raised his head and looked at her. Ninth young master. You mean I can help you regain your strength from back then, or even become stronger? Chapter 1298. Hu Fei's current situation was completely due to the Gu Poison Mother's consumption. After so many years of consumption, Hu Fei's vitality and spiritual energy had been lost. His strength and aura had also become food for the Gu Poison Mother. He had become nutrients for its growth. If it were anyone else, they would not be able to ask for these nutrients from the Gu Poison Mother and turn them into strength and return them to Hu Fei. That was not realistic at all. Luo Qingtong would not do that either. Moreover, the Gu Poison Mother was now hers. Luo Qingtong would not sacrifice the Gu Poison Mother to make up for Hu Fei. But, if the Gu Poison Mother could not be used, she could find it from its original owner to make up for it. Don't forget, the Gu Poison Mother was nourished by Bai Feng's blood. It consumed Hu Fei's energy and strength to nourish itself. However, a portion of its strength was provided to Bai Feng through the connection between it and Bai Feng. Otherwise, even if Bai Feng's original intention was to prevent Hu Fei from spouting nonsense, and she was also afraid that the man who had taken Yan Nyang's virginity would notice something was amiss, so she used the Gu Poison Mother. However, after so many years, why did she not kill Hu Fei but instead kept the Gu Poison Mother in Hu Fei's body? Naturally, it was because the Gu Poison Mother was also benefiting from absorbing Hu Fei's energy and strength. Luo Qingtong did not need to go out and ask around. She was certain that Bai Feng's strength must have increased very quickly over the past 10 years. Every breakthrough must have been easy, right? Her status in the Huo family must have been getting higher and higher. That was why she could help the Bai family rise and help the voodoo sect develop better. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up into a smile. If she had not felt threatened this time and was afraid that Hu Fei would expose himself, she would not have thought of getting rid of Hu Fei so quickly. After all, he was such a good source of nourishment. Others could not compare to Hu Fei's potential. Not everyone could withstand the goo poison mother's consumption for so many years. Since Luo Qingtong liked Hu Fei and the latter was Yan Yang's brother, she was naturally willing to help him. Anyway, she loved to see those ingrates reap what they sow and regret it. I can help you recover your previous strength. However, are you willing to swallow this goo poison mother again? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at Hu Fei. She raised her hand and summoned the goo mother in front of her. Previously, when she brought it over, she already had the intention to see how Hu Fei was doing. If the other party was worthy of his help, he would do so. If it wasn't anything, then so be it. She couldn't be bothered to put in so much effort. Do you dare? I dare. Hu Fei looked at the goo mother in Luo Qingtong's hand, and his face paled even more. However, he gritted his teeth and nodded heavily in the end. Even though she knew that she had been in a coma for so many years because of him, she knew that it was all because of him. Even if one's strength was wasted or regressed, it would be the same. If Luo Qingtong could not force the mother of goo poison out like the last time, she would most likely return to being a useless person who was like a living dead, but all of these worries could not compare to his desire for strength. Anyway, his life was saved by Luo Qingtong. So what if he put his life in her hands again in order to trust her this time? Hu Fei had already told Hu Yannyang everything he knew, including the things he had investigated back then. Chapter 1299. As for his father and sister, if he didn't have the ability, how could he protect them? He might as well just die and not become their burden. Even if Hu Zhongtian didn't tell him many things about family Hu Fei could feel that his father was forced to compromise and agree to let second elders people move into the main residence to take over the family Hu. It was because of his paralysis and coma. Otherwise, why would Hu Zhongtian compromise so much? Hu Fei's expression was resolute. His face had only turned pale for a moment at the very beginning, but he had immediately agreed. All right. Luo Qingtong nodded and narrowed her eyes. You just need to open your mouth. As she spoke, she used her mind to control the mother of goo poison to fly towards Hu Fei. Hu Fei's face was pale, but he still opened his mouth. Young master. The mother of goo poison flew towards Hu Fei's mouth. Hu Zhongtian, who had been holding back from speaking, couldn't help but shout. It wasn't that he didn't trust Luo Qingtong. But, he had just seen Hu Fei wake up, and now he had to see him being parasitized by the mother of goo poison again. Hu Zhongtian couldn't help but feel afraid. He was afraid that his son would never wake up again. Father, it's all right. If Master can save Big Brother once, she can save him a second time. She's helping Big Brother. Hu Yannyang was very excited. She was very clear about Luo Qingtong's medical skills and knew that she never lied. If she said that she could help Hu Fei recover his cultivation and even make him stronger, then she definitely could. In fact, when Hu Yannyang heard that Luo Qingtong and Hu Fei could recover his cultivation, she almost couldn't help but cry tears of joy. Hu Fei had become like this because of her. Hu Yannyang naturally hoped that he could recover completely. She didn't expect Luo Qingtong to give her such a good answer. Thank you, Master. Thank you. Hu Yannyang choked with sobs and bowed to Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong didn't stop her from bowing to her. She had done this for Hu Yannyang. That was why she had helped to save Hu Fei. Otherwise, how could a person make her feel good? Lend a hand. She was not that free, nor was she that saintly. Get out. I'll call you when it's ready. Luo Qingtong said to Hu Yannyang. Yes. Hu Yannyang pulled Hu Zhongtian out of the room. Yannyang, this ninth young master, can he really? Hu Zhongtian walked out of the room with a face full of worry. Father, if master can't help, then in this world, at least in the entire True Spill continent, there aren't many people that can help Big Brother. Perhaps those great alchemists in the hidden world could do it. But that kind of person was hard to come by. Moreover, why would the other party help them? Hu Yenyang knew that family who didn't have any bargaining chips that could persuade the other party. What's more, those people's abilities might not be comparable to masters. This was the confidence that Yenyang had developed after following Luo Qingtong for so long. Father, don't worry. Master can definitely do it. Big Brother will definitely recover. Oh, good. Hu Zhongtian heard her so confident and couldn't help but ask, Yenyang, you've always refused to say what you were doing outside. What is your identity? Chapter 1300. Hu Zhongtian was very curious. Luo Qingtong's attire was very inconspicuous, but when she faced the second elder's family, she revealed a very intimidating aura from time to time. Hu Zhongtian could also be considered as someone who had seen a lot of things. He had seen countless powerhouses and clans. But Luo Qingtong's aura was not something that could be cultivated by just anyone. Only someone who stood in an extremely high position, who once looked down on everyone and lived an unrestrained life would have such an arrogant aura. Who was she? Could she be the nephew of the imperial sect master, or a peerless genius disciple of the sect? Father, don't ask about master's identity. Hu Yenyang naturally would not casually reveal Luo Qingtong's identity. The far west wilderness was mixed with crooks and honest people. Because of the Sage King's tomb that was about to appear, there were more and more experts from all walks of life. The more Luo Qingtong's identity was exposed, the worse it would be. You only need to know that with Master around, our family who will definitely be as stable as Mount Tai. And we will definitely rise. That's enough. Hu Yenyang looked at the room and murmured. The luckiest thing in her and her son's life was meeting Luo Qingtong and being saved by her. From then on, they no longer had to fear the wind and rain. And just as Hu Yenyang and Hu Zhongtian were talking, in the room, after Luo Qingtong let the goo poison queen fly into Hu Fei's mouth, it immediately flew into his mind. Just like when it parasitized Hu Fei before, it ruthlessly pierced its mouth into Hu Fei's mind. Because this time, he was awake and saw the goo poison queen enter his body. Hu Fei was also very aware of the goo poison queen's parasitism. Just as he could not help but feel numb in his mind, Luo Qingtong's voice rang in his ears. Circulate the aura in your body. Remember, absorb as much power as you can. If you miss it, there won't be any left. Luo Qingtong said. Before Hu Fei could react, there was a buzz and the mother of goo in his mind had already flapped its wings. In the next second, the goo enslavement imprint drawn by Luo Qingtong on its forehead started spinning in reverse. Buzz! Wave after wave of power came from a secret connection in the goo poison queen. Reverse goo. Luo Qingtong had previously used the goo god sect's goo controlling method to sever the connection between the goo mother and Bai Feng, but she did not sever this connection. It was just that the connection between her and the goo mother was suppressed by a higher level of goo controlling method. Now that she had reversed the goo technique, the connection barrier between White Phoenix and the goo mother had disappeared. She didn't even have the time to rejoice that she had regained her goo mother. In an instant, the energy and essence in her body were drained away like how the goo mother had absorbed Hu Fei. And this kind of drain was even faster because Luo Qingtong was using a higher level of goo controlling method. In the 24th century of southern border in Luo Qingtong's previous life, the battle between the goo clan was extremely fierce and cruel. Those who were suppressed in goo controlling method would either submit to the other or be stripped of everything, goo worms and strength. But generally, those who were devoured by the goo worms would have their strength devoured by the goo worms. The goo worms would be fattened up, and the winner would designate them to be the goo worms of others. Luo Qingtong made a slight improvement and fed all the strength of the goo worms back to Hu Fei. Chapter 1301. The Bai Family. Bai Changfeng and Bai Feng were discussing how to use the map of Family Who once they got their hands on it. He had already sent someone to Family Who. At the same time, he had also sent someone to invite Hua Ting over. The reason was naturally because of Bai Feng. When Hua Ting and the others arrived, they would be able to, coincidentally, discover the map of Family Who. Then, they would act surprised and share the map with the Hua family. With the Bai family's current strength and status, if they did not rely on the Hua family and directly went to the Ouyang family with the map, they would be swallowed whole. After all, whoever had the map would have the greatest advantage in the exploration of the Holy King's tomb. Everyone knew that. By then, the Bai family would be in trouble because of their wealth. As the two of them were discussing, Bai Feng suddenly stood up with an indescribable expression of surprise and joy on her face. Before Bai Changfeng could ask her what had happened, he saw her expression change abruptly. In an instant, she was extremely shocked. What's going on? My strength. Ah! Bai Feng's face was filled with shock. She fell to the ground and wailed in pain. The strength in her body was continuously being absorbed. The backlash from the queen of venomous insects caused the essence and power in her body to be drained continuously. Meanwhile, in Family Who, the energy in Hu Fei's body was continuously increasing. The reverse parasite technique could only be used on the person who had been poisoned. Since Hu Fei's energy was absorbed by the parasite mother, the energy absorbed by the parasite mother after it devoured Bai Feng was naturally fed back to him without any hindrance. If it were another person, they would not be able to accept the energy fed back by the parasite mother. The energy in Hu Fei's body continued to increase. Outside, Hu Yinyang and her father, who were anxiously waiting outside, suddenly received a report from a guard. Family head, young mistress, second elders people are here. They even brought people from the clan. The Family Who guard looked extremely anxious. Second elder and his people had come in such a menacing manner. They had directly barged into Family Who and even called people from the clan. They were probably not here with good intentions. Humph. They're finally here. Hu Yinyang's expression was cold. She retracted her gaze from the door. Father, let's go take a look. Hu Yinyang had been mentally prepared after she chased away second elder's people from Family Who. The other party would definitely not give up so easily. As for the people of the clan, since they were able to force her father to give up on her for the sake of Family Who, this time, they would definitely not watch her return without taking any action. Since that's the case, let's do it together. Today, she was going to make up for all the things that had happened in the past with them. All right. Hu Zhongtian's expression was also very solemn. However, just like Hu Yinyang, he was already prepared when he chased away the second elder's people. Moreover, Hu Fei had already awakened. He no longer needed to look at the faces of the clan members. If the other party still wanted to force him to let his daughter leave like he did back then, that was absolutely impossible. The group headed to the main hall. In the main hall, second elder's people were already waiting there. The people from Family Who and the clan were also seated on the main seats. One of them, who looked extremely old, sat on the highest seat in the middle. His eyes were tightly shut. His entire body was surging with a faintly discernible and powerful aura. It attracted the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from all directions, shielding the area where he was from the others. A powerful cultivator of the saint state. Chapter 1302. Great-granduncle. In the hall, the second elder spoke respectfully to the old man, Hu Zhongtian is obstinately clinging to his own course. As the most respected elder and expert of the Hu clan, you can't allow him to casually decide the inheritance of the Hu clan. That stupid bastard that Hu Yinyang gave birth to. I don't even know where that bastard came from. If the mother and son were to inherit Family Who, I'm afraid our Family Who would be destroyed in the future. And the clan would be in trouble as well. After all, the whole city knows what Hu Yennyang did back then. The Hu clan is also very angry. Hu Zhongtian ignored our Hu clan because of his own selfishness. Great-granduncle. When the time comes, please step in and shut the mouths of the people. Second elder was very pleased with himself. With the clan and by clan stepping in and pressuring him, Hu Zhongtian had no choice but to hand over family Hu to him today. Once he took control of family Hu, the first thing he would do was to get rid of Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yennyang. And that young man called Yi Zhou. Thinking of that young man who helped Chu Lingfeng break into family Hu and saw Hu Zhongtian, second elder gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. If not for him, their bloodline wouldn't have been in such a passive position today. Not to mention Hu Bang and Hu Yenner, it was also because the other party had called out to Chu Lingfeng at the city gates and Chu Lingfeng had resisted. That was why his two most beloved grandsons and granddaughter had turned into such a hideous state. Hu Yenner had already been sent out of Wilderness City with a foul smell all over her body, and Hu Bang was lying in bed like an idiot and a cripple. In addition, the reason they were chased out of family Hu's main residence was also related to that Yi Zhou. He didn't care about the others. He couldn't be bothered to deal with them. But this Yi Zhou, he wanted to get rid of him and Hu Yennyang together. Didn't he want to help Chu Lingfeng? Didn't he acknowledge the other party as his big brother? Then let him live and die together with Hu Yennyang and her son. Humph. The second elder's face darkened. As for the great uncle, he didn't even bat an eyelid. I know what you're talking about. Although this family Hu belongs to Hu Zhongtian's bloodline, but since he is so stubborn, our clan will not stand by and do nothing. Hu Yennyang. If it wasn't for Hu Zhongtian stopping her with all his might, she would have been drowned in a pig's cage. How dare you come back to family Hu? Do you think there's no one left in our clan? It's impossible for her to inherit family Hu. Today, we will make Hu Zhongtian hand over the inheritance to you. The elders beside him nodded in agreement. That's right. The right to inherit family Hu cannot be given to a bastard. Not to mention a fool. Hu Yennyang is so shameless, there's no way she can inherit family Hu. The people of our clan will never allow it. The group of people spoke with a strong sense of righteousness, but in reality, they had already been bought over by the second elder's bloodline. The Bai clan had promised the second elder's bloodline that if they obtained the map, they would give it to the Huo clan and bring them into the Saint King's tomb. The second elder's bloodline naturally wanted to enter the Saint King's tomb to obtain a great opportunity. With their strength, if they waited until the map of the Saint King's tomb was complete and entered the tomb with the other forces, they might not be able to get anything out of it. Chapter 1303. The second elder's faction agreed without hesitation. They were willing to work with the Bai family to force Hu Zhongtian to hand over the map. If it weren't for the arrival of Luo Qingtong and the others, they would have succeeded. Now, the people of the clan couldn't bear the thought of Hu Yennyang inheriting family Hu. Secondly, the second elder tempted them with the Bai family Hu map. Naturally, they wholeheartedly wanted to fight for the right to control family Hu. The group of people sat arrogantly in the main hall, waiting for the appearance of Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yennyang. When Hu Yennyang and Hu Zhongtian stepped into the main hall, they were greeted with cold and merciless glares like sharp blades. Especially when they looked at Hu Yennyang, their eyes were filled with disdain and contempt. Hu Yennyang. You did such a shameful thing in the past and made the Hu family the laughingstock of the wild city. How dare you appear in front of us now? The people of the Hu family were the first to attack. Hu Yennyang looked at them indifferently and said, "How am I shameless? Moreover, you are the ones who appeared in front of me, not the other way around." As she spoke, she glanced at the people of the second elder's faction and the clan with a sneer. I know why you are here today. Aren't you coveting the right to control family Hu? And that thing too. But don't worry, you won't have the chance. Hu Yenyang stayed by Luo Qingtong's side in the main city of the Black Field and dealt with the major forces of the Sacred Dynasty every day. The Hu family and the Second Elder's faction today were just child's play to her. Did they think that she was still the same Hu Yenyang who cried and wanted to die after being accused? Hu Yenyang. Don't try to twist words and force logic. Your reputation has been tarnished. You are also a woman, there is no way you can inherit family Hu. Our clansmen are only thinking about family Hu's future. That's why we want to meddle in the affairs of the main lineage. Today, even if you're going to make us take the blame, we're going to clear family Hu's name. Seeing that Hu Yenyang had exposed their intentions, the members of the Hu clan all said angrily out of humiliation. Humph. Qingming. What right do you have to meddle in the affairs of the main branch of our family Hu with all the scandals you've done? As Hu Yenyang spoke, she took out the information that Luo Qingtong had given her, and threw it in front of the members of the Hu clan and Second Elder's branch. The voodoo sex people had used the Gu Mother to infect many of the clans in Desolate City, including the Hu clan and the Second Elder's branch. Hu Yenyang had thrown all the dirty deeds that they had done in front of them, such as bullying and tyrannizing women. You. Where did you get these things? The expressions of the Hu clan and the Second Elder's lineage changed abruptly when they saw the secret things they had done before being exposed, and they looked at Hu Yenyang with extremely shocked gazes. How did she get her hands on all the dirty things they had done? Only the members of the voodoo sect who had been controlled by the voodoo sect looked at Hu Yenyang with shock. They recognized that they were the ones who had provided the voodoo sect with all this information. How did it end up in Hu Yenyang's hands? Could it be that the voodoo sect was founded by Hu Yenyang? All these years, they had been controlled by Hu Yenyang. The members of the Hu clan were shocked. Chapter 1304. Yenyang, you've always been very smart. His gaze swept past the information that Hu Yenyang had thrown out. It was about the secret deeds that the Hu clan and Second Elder's lineage had done in secret. His gaze was cold as he looked at Hu Yenyang. In the past, you and your elder brother were publicly acknowledged as the two smartest people in this generation of the Hu clan. In fact, in some aspects, you were even smarter than your elder brother. It's a pity that Hu Zhongtian spoiled you too much and raised you to have a naive personality. He looked at Hu Yenyang with a cold smile and said, otherwise, you wouldn't have ended up like this back then. Now, your naive personality hasn't changed. It's indeed your ability to obtain these things. That great-granduncle said with a cold expression. But if you want to rely on these things to make us leave completely and withdraw from this battle for control of the family Hu, your methods are still a little too inexperienced. Who can prove that the information you've provided was definitely done by members of our Hu clan? So what if the things recorded in these documents are true? As long as we insist that Hu Zhongtian deliberately slandered us in order to let your morally deficient daughter successfully inherit the family Hu. How many people in the entire wilderness city do you think will believe you? If you take these things out, I'm afraid that according to the records, the victims' families and people would want to tear you into pieces first, right? That great-granduncle sneered. He originally didn't want to speak. He had only come this time to oversee the situation and make Hu Zhongtian act according to their request. He wanted to abdicate his position to Second Elder, and then hand over the map of the Saint King's tomb. But Hu Yenyang had thrown out such a document, so he had no choice but to speak. Hu Yenyang was really something. She had left her hometown pregnant and didn't die in the end. Not only that, she had found out about the secrets of the Hu clan as soon as she returned. Some of the things that great-granduncle had done were also recorded in the document. How could he continue to pretend to be a person of virtue and prestige? The great-granduncle looked at Hu Yenyang with anger and coldness in his eyes. His words immediately caused the members of the Hu clan present to react. That's right. Hu Yenyang. Don't think that you can force us to retreat just because you threw out these things. There's no one in your main branch. How can a woman like you, who has done all kinds of scandalous things, be qualified to inherit the family who? If you know what's good for you, you'd better hand over control of family who. Get out of here obediently. Otherwise what? Before these people from the Hu clan and Second Elder's faction could finish their clamor, an indifferent voice sounded from behind Hu Yennyang and the others. Then, a figure stepped in from the entrance. It's quite lively here. Luo Qingtong glanced at the crowd indifferently. She had just come out of Hu Fei's room when she heard that Second Elder's faction had joined forces with the Hu clan to cause trouble. Thinking about what she had just done, Luo Qingtong had a playful look on her face and directly came over. She was looking forward to seeing the expressions of these people from the Hu clan. It would definitely be very exciting. Moss. Ninth Young Master. Chapter 1305. Especially Hu Zhongtian, whose face was originally full of anger. Now that he saw Luo Qingtong and saw how relaxed she was, the surprise in his heart could not be suppressed. The other party appeared so easily. Did it mean that just as Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yennyang were unable to suppress their excitement, Second Elder looked at Luo Qingtong and sneered. If you hadn't appeared, I would have forgotten about you. Yi Zhou. That's your name, right? Later, all of them will be able to leave this place. Only you can't. The Second Elder had already regarded the Hu clan's control as something in his pocket. Now that he saw Luo Qingtong appear, he was like a hungry wolf that saw a rabbit. He sneered at Luo Qingtong, already seeing her as prey in his hands. Later, he would let this fellow know the consequences of offending him. That Second Elder's expression was gloomy. Luo Qingtong was not affected at all. Oh. Is that so? She looked at Second Elder and smiled lightly. Are you sure? She raised her eyebrows and glanced at the figure that appeared at the door. This is family whose main residence. I'm afraid it's not your place to speak, right? Luo Qingtong looked calmly at Second Elder and the clan members behind him. Humph. There's no one in the main bloodline, so someone from our bloodline should inherit this place. It's useless even if Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yennyang object. This is a matter decided by the clan. Although they are from the main bloodline, they still have to listen to the clan's decision if they have no successors. That Second Elder sneered. He thought that Luo Qingtong wanted to seek Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yennyang's support. However, these two people, one was a dying man and the other was a woman. They could not support her at all. Even if they wanted to snatch family Hu's inheritance rights, they could not do anything. Not to mention supporting Luo Qingtong. As he thought of this, he looked at Luo Qingtong with an indescribably cold and vicious gaze. However, right at this moment, an icy cold voice suddenly sounded from outside. Is that so? Who said there's no one in family whose main bloodline? As he spoke, Hu Fei's figure stepped in from outside. He had just arrived at the door. The figure that Luo Qingtong had caught a glimpse of was him. You? Hu Fei. Seeing Hu Fei's figure appear, the complacent smile on the Second Elder's face immediately froze. He looked at Hu Fei in disbelief. How was this possible? Wasn't Hu Fei still lying in bed? He had been paralyzed in bed for more than 10 years. How did he suddenly recover? And, the Second Elder's face was filled with shock as he looked at Hu Fei's tyrannical aura. Saint stage. This was impossible. When Hu Fei was paralyzed in bed, he was only at the upper-class martial spirit realm. How could it be that after more than 10 years, not only did his strength not decrease, but he even broke through to the saint realm? How was this possible? Second Elder's face was full of shock. So were the people from Second Elder's bloodline and the Hu clan behind him. Bang! The few clan elders who had been sitting steadily on the main seats all stood up in shock. The great-granduncle could no longer maintain his calm expression. Hu Fei. Chapter 1306. Big Brother. Fei. Their hearts were filled with surprise and excitement. Although they had guessed from Luo Qingtong's appearance that Hu Fei must be fine. Moreover, his strength must have recovered and improved. However, when they saw Hu Fei, who had been lying on the bed with a pale face a moment ago, appear in front of them in high spirits, Hu Yannyang and Hu Zhongtian were so happy that they cried. Yannyang, father. Hu Fei looked at them and nodded. His heart was filled with excitement. However, now was not the time to show it. He looked coldly at the shocked members of the Hu clan and Second Elder's bloodline. Are you the ones who bullied our main bloodline and wanted to seize control of family Hu's main bloodline? Hu Fei sneered at the members of the Hu clan and Second Elder's bloodline. When he was young, he was known as the Cold Prince with the Jade Face. His strength was outstanding and his methods were ruthless. All the disciples of the middle-class aristocratic families in Wilderness City regarded him as their leader. At that time, his prestige was almost comparable to that of the disciples of the top aristocratic families. If Bai Feng had not used the Gu mother to harm him, he might have led family Hu into the ranks of the top aristocratic families in Wilderness City today. As his gaze swept across them, the members of the Hu clan and Second Elder's bloodline felt a chill in their hearts. Not for anything else, but Hu Fei's awakening meant that the main bloodline had a successor. When was it their turn to covet the Hu clan's authority? It would have been fine if Hu Fei had been bedridden for more than 10 years, his body was in tatters, and his strength had declined rapidly. However, at this moment, Hu Fei's footsteps were steady, and his strength had broken through to the saint stage. It was as if he had not been bedridden and unconscious all these years, but had been cultivating in seclusion. Under such circumstances, how were they going to seize control of the Hu clan? All the reasons they had given before now seemed pale and powerless, and were nothing more than a joke. The members of the Hu clan were pale, and Second Elder's bloodline was even more dispirited. They had never expected Hu Fei to awaken. But now, this plan was completely for naught. Scram! Hu Fei's voice was cold. The members of the Hu clan could not help but tremble. At this moment, the Second Elder's voice sounded. Don't be scared by him. The Second Elder's expression turned ugly. Hu Fei's awakening had the greatest impact on him. All of his chips were all staked on fighting for the right to control the Hu clan. He had already formed a blood feud with Hu Zhongtian and the others. If he didn't succeed this time, he would just leave like this. In the future, would they still have a chance to establish themselves in Wildland City? Moreover, he didn't think that Hu Fei would let them off. Therefore, he could not leave this time. Don't be scared by him. So what if he woke up? Here, other than us, who knows that he's awake? The Second Elder's expression was ferocious. He looked at the elders of the Hu clan and said, Grand-uncle, Hu Yannyang and the others possess many of our secrets. Today, you came with us to force the emperor to abdicate. You have already formed a deadly feud with them. You can leave now. But what about the evidence in their hands? And after what happened today, can the relationship between the clan and the main branch still be the same as before? Chapter 1307. Hu Zhongtian, Hu Fei, and the others' expressions turned serious when they heard Second Elder's words. They looked at the members of the Hu clan. The expressions of great-granduncle and the others had already changed. They were already prepared to leave when Hu Fei appeared. For so many years, the clan had always relied on the main bloodline. They were able to force Hu Zhongtian in the past because Hu Yannyang was in the wrong first. Now that Hu Fei had awakened, it was only right and proper for him to inherit the main bloodline. No matter how many thoughts they had, they could only put them away. But now, the second elder's words had suddenly enlightened them. It was true that Hu Fei had awakened and inherited the main bloodline. However, if the main bloodline was not close to their clan and even suppressed them, how were they going to live? Hu Fei and Hu Yannyang had deep feelings for each other. They had almost forced Hu Yannyang to her death back then. Now, Hu Yannyang had many of their secrets in her hands. In addition, they were forcing her to abdicate. Great-granduncle and the others' expressions kept changing. Right at this moment, the second elder's voice completely fell. In my opinion, why don't we cut the weeds and eliminate the roots? Anyway, everyone knows that the main bloodline of family who has gone extinct. No one knows that Hu Fei has awakened, so we'll go all the way. As second elder's voice rang out, the group of clan elders all looked at Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian. The coldness in his eyes was enough to make anyone who saw him shudder in fear. It was obvious that they had been persuaded by second elder. That's right. Things have come to this. There's no turning back. We must take control of family whose main bloodline. Hu Zhongtian, you can only blame your son for awakening and breaking through at the wrong time. Great-granduncle was the first to speak. As he spoke, he suddenly charged past Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian. As long as these two were killed, there would be no one to support the main bloodline of family Hu. When that time came, wouldn't their clan have the final say? As for Hu Yannyang, she was just a woman. She was nothing to be afraid of. With this thought in mind, the great-granduncle attacked Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian ruthlessly. At the same time, the several clan elders behind him also charged toward Hu Fei and Hu Zhongtian. Father. Seeing this, Hu Fei hurriedly stood in front of Hu Zhongtian, blocking the attacks of great-granduncle and the others. Yannyang. Hurry up and take father and the others away. Humph. You want to leave? It was too late. All of you will die here. As the price for refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Just as Hu Fei opened his mouth to speak, the second elder's cold and murderous voice rang out. He charged towards Hu Yannyang and Hu Zhongtian. Yannyang. Father. Seeing this scene, Hu Fei's expression changed drastically. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yannyang and pulled them to his side. Bang! The second elder's attack just happened to brush past Hu Yannyang and Hu Zhongtian's figures and landed where they were standing just a moment ago. Master! When she turned around and saw the person standing behind her, Hu Yannyang's face was first filled with joy, then shock. Master, hurry up and leave. Second elder is a Saint Realm expert. She had always been in contact with Luo Qintong, so she naturally knew that the latter was only at the peak of the martial emperor realm. Although Master's strength was extraordinary and she had always been good at killing enemies of a higher level, the difference between the martial emperor realm and the Saint realm was too great. Chapter 1308. I'm fine. Get out of my way. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold when she saw second elder charging towards her again. She raised her hand and pushed Hu Yannyang and Hu Zhongtian away. Boom! A blood-red light flashed in her eyes. In an instant, the pair of eyes turned blood-red. Especially the blood-red color in the middle of her eyes. It was as red as a blood-red sun that had just risen. Second elder's heart skipped a beat when he saw her blood-red eyes. Soon, he regained his senses. Humph! What a trick! It was just the color of her eyes that was different from the rest. He had heard that some people who were born with diseases and defects would be different from ordinary people. But in reality, it was useless. Was she trying to frighten him by showing such an appearance? Unfortunately, it was useless against him. Second Elder sneered. He looked at the aura rippling from Luo Qingtong's body. Martial Ancestor Realm. What a joke. Second Elder's face was full of arrogance. His strength was not very powerful in Wildland City. But as someone who had just entered the Saint Realm, it was enough to show disdain for many people. If it weren't for his poor aptitude and only breaking through when he was nearing old age, the position of the Hu clan's patriarch would have long been his. Luo Qingtong, a mere martial ancestor realm cultivator, dared to be so presumptuous in front of him. What a joke. But since she wanted to die, he would fulfill her wish. Anyway, he had never intended to let her go from the beginning. Thinking of this, Second Elder looked at Luo Qingtong with murderous intent in his eyes. In an instant, the aura around him shook. In an instant, an extremely violent attack was brewing in the air. Then, it carried an incomparably strong pressure of spiritual energy in the air as it whizzed towards Luo Qingtong. Seeing this attack that carried a spiritual energy storm, Luo Qingtong's eye technique quickly operated. That blood-colored sun was spinning rapidly in the blood-colored mist and multicolored light around it. In an instant, the incoming attack was analyzed into countless numbers of data. Wind direction, attack speed, weakness. Previously, she could only vaguely see the weak points of the attack. But now, with Luo Qingtong's improved eye technique, she could see almost every movement of spiritual energy. Luo Qingtong let out a sigh of relief. She felt an indescribable comfort in her heart. I've finally recovered some of my previous life's condition. Previously, she had only been able to use the most basic functions, which really made her feel a little uncomfortable. Bang! Luo Qingtong turned her palm over and the life and death sword appeared in her hand in an instant. Compared to other weapons, this life and death yin-yang sword was most suitable for Luo Qingtong. This long sword seemed to be tailor-made for her eye technique. Under Luo Qingtong's control, it was clear at a glance when to transform the life blade to absorb power, and when to transform the death blade to cut. The timing was perfect. Luo Qingtong took out this life and death yin-yang sword to test the power of her improved eye technique. Second Elder, who was at the bottom of the Sage Realm, was the most suitable person to be her experimental subject. Of course, this was also because Luo Qingtong's strength had increased to the Martial Ancestor Realm. Otherwise, if she was still at the Martial Emperor Realm, even with the help of her improved eye technique, Luo Qingtong might not be able to do anything to Second Elder. But now... Chapter 1309. Bang! She held the long sword in her hand at an angle, and in an instant, she charged towards the Second Elder's attack. Boom! Under the Second Elder's shocked gaze, Luo Qingtong's life and death yin-yang sword heavily slashed his attack, and then the attack hit back. That's right. It was hit back. The Second Elder's face was aghast. He looked at the attack that he had thrown out flying toward him. What's going on? His face was full of disbelief. Why did he lose control of his attack all of a sudden? Furthermore, it was flying towards him. He quickly dodged and looked at Luo Qingtong with unspeakable shock. How did you do that? How could she shake his attack of the Sage Realm with her strength? In the place where I used to live, there's an old saying, 4 tails can lift 1,000 caddies. Luo Qingtong's expression was calm as she looked at him happily. You don't need to understand. You just need to know that as long as it doesn't exceed the threshold that I can resist, your attack is useless to me. Luo Qingtong said so and was very satisfied with the result of her experiment. Obviously, the life blade transformation and the death blade cutting, coupled with her improved pupil technique, the Second Elder, who had just entered the Sage Realm and was only a little stronger than an expert at the peak of the Martial Spirit Realm, was no threat to her. However, this was also because the Second Elder's strength was too weak. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong might not be able to deal with an expert of the Sage Realm so easily. No. That's impossible. How could you possibly block my attack? How dare you boast that my attack is useless to you? You're just a warrior of the martial ancestor realm. The second elder refused to believe Luo Qingtong's words. The other party must have used some unorthodox method to dodge his attack. He didn't believe that she could keep using it. The second elder's face was ferocious. He raised his hand and blasted another attack toward Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong looked at the attack and jumped up easily. Bang! Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with bloody light and she waved the long sword in her hand. It was the same as before. With a boom, the attack flew towards the second elder just like how it came. Bang, bang, bang. The second elder's attack was blasted out. Luo Qingtong's long sword in her hand. Every time he blasted out an attack, she would hit back. In the end, even the second elder himself was exhausted. At this moment, Luo Qingtong had already closed in on second elder. Bastard! The second elder looked at her with a ferocious expression. But Luo Qingtong looked at him and suddenly smiled. That smile was both evil and domineering. How about I send you to hell? When Luo Qingtong said this, her left hand suddenly turned over. In the next second, the 1,000-year soul guiding wood appeared in her hand. Streams of energy surged into her body. Then Luo Qingtong raised her hand, heaven-conquering art. Then, the sword light broke through the sky and soared up. In an instant, the whole family whose lobby was illuminated by this light. Bang! The second elder was slashed out by that stunning sword light. Chapter 13:10. Bang! Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. She turned around and looked in the direction that the figure had come from. There, a group of Hu clan elders and great-granduncle were looking coldly in the direction of Luo Qingtong and the others. Their gazes were eerily cold and murderous. Big brother. Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yenyang hurriedly rushed to the place where the figure had crashed and helped him up. Cough cough. Leave quickly. Hu Fei clutched his wound and said to Hu Zhongtian and the others. Humph. Leave. None of you will leave this hall today. The Hu clan members had completely developed murderous intent towards Hu Zhongtian and the others. For the sake of their reputations, no one else other than them would be able to leave this place alive. The Hu clan elders' voices were cold. The second elder's voice rang out at this moment. Cough cough. Great-granduncle. Kill that Yi Jiu. Kill her first. There's something strange about her. The second elder had been severely injured by Luo Qingtong's sword just now. He had almost been killed by her. He looked at Luo Qingtong with shock and fear. The strength that she had displayed was not something that an ordinary person could display. Which martial ancestor realm expert could seriously injure him, a saint realm expert, with one sword strike? Even if he was a saint realm expert and was at the bottom of the saint realm, it was still impossible. She was too terrifying. If she escaped, there would be endless trouble in the future. The second elder's words instantly attracted the attention of great-granduncle and the others. Their gazes swept over him, and they were instantly shocked. There was no other reason. Even with the second elder's strength, he had been injured to such an extent. With their eyesight, they could naturally see that if they had not sent Hu Fei flying and caused Luo Qingtong to stop her attack, the second elder would have been a dead man by now. She was actually so powerful. How could a martial ancestor realm expert win so easily against a saint realm expert? At this moment, great-granduncle and the others looked at Luo Qingtong with cautious gazes. The murderous intent that was originally looking at Hu Fei, Hu Zhongtian, and the others now shifted to Luo Qingtong. Hu Fei and the others were no longer a threat. When great-granduncle and the others attacked, they had already sealed off the hall's movements. Those who were weaker than them would not be able to detect the movements within. They were not afraid that someone would come to save Hu Fei and the others. They would still be able to deal with Hu Fei and the others after they killed Yi Jiu. Great-granduncle and the others long sleeves with that thought, they immediately charged towards Luo Qingtong. Master! Hu Yinyang saw this scene and immediately cried out in alarm. Nothing must happen to Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes when she saw the great-granduncle and the elders of the Hu clan dashing towards her. 5 Saint. Besieging her. They really thought too highly of her. However, there was not much power left in the 1,000-year soul guiding wood in her hand, and there was not enough time to set up the array. Luo Qingtong frowned. She glanced around. Family who did not have enough defensive arrays to withstand attacks from Saint Realm experts. This was not a problem that only family who had, but a common problem among all the clans in Wilderness City. Perhaps it was because the far west wilderness was a wasteland. Chapter 13:11. Luo Qingtong's brows were tightly knitted together. At this moment, her eyes suddenly focused. That's it. Bang! She leaped up. In the blink of an eye, he flashed past the attacks launched by the Hu clan members like a ghost. Her eyes flickered with a bloody light. Under her pupil technique, she was able to see the strength, trajectory, and speed of the attacks launched by the elders of the Hu clan and the great-granduncle. Everything was in her sight. She could see everything at a glance. Bang, bang, bang. Luo Qingtong waved the long sword in her hand. The attacks launched by the clan elders were all redirected by her power, just like the attacks launched by the second elder previously. They were all repelled back one after another. The attacks collided with each other and finally condensed together to cancel out the attack launched by the great-granduncle. She borrowed strength to fight strength. 4 ounces to 1,000 caddies. Only Luo Qingtong could do this. Otherwise, an ordinary martial ancestor realm cultivator wouldn't be able to see through the attacks of a sage realm expert or an expert who had surpassed the sage realm. Even a martial spirit realm expert might not be able to see through it. Not to mention above the sage realm. Every step up was like the difference between heaven and earth. Bang! Luo Qingtong's figure landed on the ground. With a few leaps, she appeared in front of Hu Fei. She raised her hand and fed him a bottle of medicinal liquid. Then, she patted his body. With a bang, Hu Fei felt that the injuries in his body had healed in an instant. Not only that, Luo Qingtong's pat seemed to have stimulated the potential in his body. The strength he could unleash now was above his original strength. With your current strength, can you block them for 100 breaths of time? Luo Qingtong looked at him and asked. No. Hu Fei gritted his teeth and said. Although he didn't know why Luo Qingtong suddenly asked him such a question, Hu Fei could feel from Luo Qingtong's attitude that this question must be very important. He really wanted to answer yes. However, this was a matter of life and death. If he insisted on saying that he couldn't do it, it wouldn't matter if he killed himself. However, if he caused Luo Qingtong and the others to lose their lives as well, he would truly be a sinner for all eternity. I can only hold on for 50 breaths at most. Hu Fei had fought with great-granduncle and the others before, so he naturally knew where his limit was. Even if Luo Qingtong had increased his strength, it was impossible for him to resist the other party for 100 breaths of time. After all, great-granduncle was an expert who had surpassed the Saint Realm. The difference between the Saint Realm and those who had surpassed the Saint Realm was too great. Not to mention the fact that there were 5 Saint stage experts by his side. If he had Luo Qingtong's ability, it wouldn't be a problem for him to hold on for 100 breaths. But he didn't. Alright, I got it. Hu Fei originally thought that the young man would be disappointed after hearing his answer, so he felt guilty. Unexpectedly, Luo Qingtong just nodded and didn't even frown. Hu Fei looked at Luo Qingtong and then heard her say, "I'll get someone else to assist you. It shouldn't be a problem for the two of you to hold on for 100 breaths of time. By the way, you don't have to be polite to him, and you don't have to worry about whether he will die or not. If necessary, you can even use him to block attacks." Ah. Hu Fei looked at Luo Qingtong in surprise. Others? Who? Moreover, she could even use them to block attacks without caring about their lives. Chapter 13:12. Apart from the few of them, there was no one else here. The other guards were not enough to stop great-granduncle and the rest. While Hu Fei was puzzled, Luo Qingtong shouted softly, "Go!" Following her command, a golden ray of light shot out from Luo Qingtong's body. In a corner of the hall, Second Elder was sitting cross-legged with his teeth clenched. The blow that Luo Qingtong gave him was too heavy. It almost took away half of his life. Fortunately, he still had a bottle of top-notch healing liquid that the Bai family had given to him when he had made a deal with them earlier. It was said that it came from the Huo family. After Second Elder drank it, he instantly felt that his injuries were much better. That brat called Yi Jiu. Once he recovered from his injuries and was able to use some of his strength, he would definitely join forces with the Hu clan and make him die a miserable death. To appease the hatred in his heart. Just as Second Elder was gnashing his teeth in anger, with a buzz, a figure suddenly shot into his ears. "What's that?" The Second Elder opened his eyes abruptly. However, before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his mind. Ah! That stinging pain came so suddenly that the Second Elder had only just opened his eyes when he suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. Then, he realized to his horror that his body was out of his control. Buzz! Following Luo Qingtong's thoughts, the queen of venomous worms in Second Elder's mind kept flapping its wings. Its mandibles pierced into the Second Elder's brain, injecting streams of liquid that represented its essence into the Second Elder's brain. This action would deplete a large amount of the Queen of Venomous Worm's life force and strength, and it would be difficult to replenish it within a short period of time. However, it could temporarily control Second Elder's body. Bang! Second Elder's body was forced to stand up, and he stood in front of the Hu clan members who were about to attack Luo Qingtong again. "Hu Tianda! What are you doing? Get out of the way!" Seeing the Second Elder standing in front of them, the great-granduncle frowned and flicked his sleeve. "Great-uncle, it's not that I want to stand in front of you, but I can't control myself." Ah! As the Second Elder screamed, an attack instantly formed in his hand and blasted towards the people of the Hu clan. "Great-granduncle, get out of the way!" Bang! The members of the Hu clan had never expected that the Second Elder would suddenly attack them. Two of the elders were unable to dodge in time and were hit by the attack. They were instantly killed. Bastard! The great-granduncle looked furious. What's going on? Before he could finish his sentence, the Second Elder let out a blood-curdling scream and charged towards them again. When the Second Elder and the members of the Hu clan started fighting, Hu Fei was already stunned. He had never thought that the other people Luo Qingtong was talking about would actually be the Second Elder. How did he do it? Chapter 13:13. Luo Qingtong might have been able to control the Gu Poison Mother to do this. But even Bai Feng couldn't do something like this, right? After all, if Bai Feng could control the Gu Poison Mother to control a stage expert, how could she allow the Gu Poison Mother to stay in his mind for a long time? This meant that Bai Feng's ability to control the Gu Poison arts was much weaker than Luo Qingtong's. As Hu Fei thought about this, he looked at Luo Qingtong with even more surprise and curiosity. The ninth young master that his younger sister brought into family, who was truly extraordinarily capable. He didn't know what his identity was. However, Hu Fei didn't think too much about it. No matter what his identity was, he was family Hu's benefactor. There was no doubt about this. His figure flashed out, and together with the second elder, he launched an attack on the members of the Hu clan. Bastard! Great-granduncle and the others were being pestered and wanted to deal a heavy blow. Hu Fei used the second elder as a shield again. Not to mention, the second elder was really useful as a shield. In any case, they didn't have to care about his life or death. They could just hide behind him if there were any big moves. Great-granduncle and the others were so angry that they gnashed their teeth. It wasn't that they felt sorry for the second elder, but with the second elder as a human shield, Hu Fei had too much room to display. If they couldn't hit Hu Fei, what was the use of killing or crippling the second elder? What was even more strange was that even if the second elder was being attacked and screamed more miserably than a pig being slaughtered, his body wouldn't stop attacking. It was as if the attack didn't hit his body at all, and the injuries he suffered weren't his own. It caused all the members of the Hu clan to be extremely annoyed. While they were fighting, Luo Qingtong had already dashed to Hu Zhongtian's front. Family Hu, I'm going to dissolve the broken bones in your body. Bear with it. Luo Qingtong said to Hu Zhongtian. Originally, with Luo Qingtong's previous strength, she would have needed to wait for 2 more days to dissolve the broken bones in Hu Zhongtian's body. He would wait until the broken bones in Hu Zhongtian's body were soaked in the medicinal bath until they became softer before he made his move. However, now that her strength had reached the martial ancestor realm, her eye technique had improved too. Thus, she did not need to wait for another 2 days before she was able to remove the shattered bones for the man. Master! Hu Yannyang looked at Luo Qingtong in surprise and joy. She already knew what Luo Qingtong was going to do. As the head of family Hu Zhongtian's cultivation had surpassed the Saint realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to suppress those people from the clan. Once the shattered bones in his body melted and his cultivation recovered, he would definitely be able to deal with those people from the clan. At that time, the crisis would be resolved. Most importantly, his father would recover. Hu Zhongtian's face was also filled with excitement. The reason why he was unable to display his full strength and was unable to recover from his serious illness was all because of the broken bones growing in his body. Once the broken bones were removed, he would immediately recover his cultivation. At that time, he would kill everyone in the clan. Hu Zhongtian's face was filled with murderous intent when he thought of what the people from the clan, including the second elder and the others, had done. For the sake of the clan, he had tolerated everything. However, he didn't want to harm his own bloodline. However, the people from the clan didn't want his family to live. Moreover, they wanted to eradicate and kill his family when Hu Fei was awake. Therefore, they shouldn't blame him for being ruthless. From now on, the family Hu would become a clan of their own. They would no longer have any contact with any other members of the Hu clan. Hu Zhongtian's face was filled with murderous intent. Chapter 13-14. He said resolutely. No matter how painful it was, he could endure it. Okay. Luo Qingtong looked at them and said, Yen Yang, step aside. You stay here and guard. Luo Qingtong said as she released Little Pig. Little Pig had vaguely sensed the situation outside the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. He thought Luo Qingtong released him to block the arrows. He was almost scared to death. Later, when he heard that Luo Qingtong asked him to guard here, he was relieved. Don't worry. Master. I will guard this place well. Isn't it just guarding this place? Hu Fei and the others were still fighting fiercely with the Hu clan's people. And the second elder, the one who blocked the arrows. They definitely won't be able to rush here. Moreover, 100 breaths of time is very easy to pass. Thinking of this, Little Pig patted his chest with his little hoof and said, all right, all right. Luo Qingtong snorted softly, but did not bother with it. She treated Hu Zhongtian. The energy in her hand was like a needle, and it directly entered Hu Zhongtian's chest and lungs, removing the broken bones that grew in his flesh. Luo Qingtong was different from ordinary doctors. Ordinary doctors like to make a set of silver needles for themselves. However, for Luo Qingtong, silver needles were not suitable for her. Her eye technique could see through everything. The energy in her hand was like a needle, and she could move it at will. As Luo Qingtong's energy entered Hu Zhongtian's body, Hu Zhongtian suddenly let out a muffled groan. Even though Luo Qingtong's movements were extremely precise and light, the bones grew in the flesh. The process of removing them was no different from cutting the flesh and cutting the bones. Every time Luo Qingtong moved, Hu Zhongtian would let out a muffled groan and tremble. The sweat on his forehead dripped down like rain. And every time she removed a piece of bone, Luo Qingtong would use her own energy to turn it into powder in Hu Zhongtian's body. Bang! 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 As muffled sounds rang out from Hu Zhongtian's body, his aura continued to solidify and recover. The broken bones growing horizontally in the flesh of the chest and lungs were removed and shattered one by one. Hu Zhongtian's aura was becoming thicker and thicker. As the aura in his body recovered, Luo Qingtong had to use more force to remove the shattered bones. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to break through the obstruction of the aura in his body. The further it went, the harder it was to remove the shattered bones. Luo Qingtong's movements began to slow down. On the other hand, the commotion here had drawn the attention of the members of the Hu clan. Not good. When they saw the aura on Hu Zhongtian's body ceaselessly becoming more and more solid, and the strength of his aura becoming more and more formidable, the expressions of everyone from the Hu clan froze. The elders had grave expressions on their faces. Needless to say, the great-granduncle's expression was even worse. As an expert who had surpassed the saint stage, he naturally knew what kind of blow it would be to their group once Hu Zhongtian recovered his strength. Bastard! His gaze was filled with killing intent as he looked at Luo Qingtong. It was this youth who had ruined their plans. She could actually cure Hu Zhongtian. Then, was Hu Fei's awakening also caused by her? Damn it! If they had known earlier, they would have killed her from the beginning. As for the second elder, who was under the control of the Gu mother, he felt even more regret when he saw this scene. Luo Qingtong had said that she wanted to cure Hu Zhongtian when she arrived. Chapter 13-15. If he had known Yi Jiuzhen had this kind of ability, he would have killed her in the family who before she arrived. He would have avoided today's disaster. Everyone's expression was vicious as they aimed their killing intent at Luo Qingtong. We can't let her cure Hu Zhongtian. Send me over. You guys stop them. The great-granduncle made a prompt decision and immediately spoke to the members of the Hu clan and the surroundings. Yes. The few elders of the Hu clan acknowledged the order. They took a step back and slapped the back of the great-granduncle with their palms. The latter's figure instantly flew up and pounced in the direction of Luo Qingtong. Not good. Hu Fei didn't expect them to use this move. They didn't forcefully break through his and the second elder's defense line, but joined forces to send the great-granduncle over. With the great-granduncle's strength and the fact that Luo Qingtong was treating Hu Zhongtian, they couldn't act rashly. The ninth young master was in danger. Bam! Hu Fei intended to stop granduncle. However, he hadn't even flashed up when he was stopped by the elders of the Hu clan who'd attacked him once more. They were the ones who were entangled with him. Luo Qingtong was currently treating Hu Zhongtian, so she couldn't give orders to the Gu mother. The order she gave it was to attack the Hu clan members. Naturally, she couldn't cooperate with Hu Fei and leave. Young master. Hu Fei was entangled by the Hu clan members and couldn't leave. He could only anxiously look in the direction of Luo Qintong and the others, praying for Luo Qintong to hurry up. Hurry up. Hurry up and finish the treatment. However, he was still at least 20 breaths away from the 100 breaths of time Luo Qintong gave him. Luo Qintong still had at least 3 transverse bones that hadn't been treated. The great-granduncle's figure had already landed not far behind her. Oh my god. Little Pig originally thought he would be fine, but now all his pig hair stood on end. There was only him and Yen Yang here. Don't count on Yen Yang. Previously, she had been hunted down while pregnant, and her body had been injured. Later on, her soul had left her body, and her cultivation had been completely destroyed. Her body was also extremely weak. Although Luo Qintong helped her recover, the damage to her soul was irreversible. Although Yen Yang's soul power had been replenished. However, there was always a barrier between her soul and her body. This was a drawback caused by her soul leaving her body in the past. If there were no accidents, she would never be able to cultivate again in this lifetime. In other words, they could only rely on Little Pig alone. How could its hair not stand on end? Because it hadn't fully recovered its strength yet. There was no way for him to break the seal and reveal his true form. Could it be that he had no choice but to sacrifice himself for the greater good? Although this little pig's body wasn't mighty or domineering enough, it was still a body. Without it, he would be forced to shrink back into the eternal darkness seal, and he didn't know when he would be able to see the light of day again. Little Pig's heart felt stifled as he thought about it. F***CK. You stinky old bastard. You have mung bean eyes and protruding ears. Your son doesn't have a D***CK. You brandy nose and scabby head. Couldn't you have come a few breaths later? Little Pig cursed as he looked at the great-granduncle's figure. However, the great-granduncle ignored him. He waved his hand. Boom. Chapter 13:16. This attack contained 200% of the great-granduncle's strength. He was determined to kill Luo Qintong. Together with Hu Zhongtian, who was standing opposite her. Father. Master. Seeing this scene, Hu Yenyang hastily rushed toward Luo Qintong and Hu Zhongtian. However, she didn't have the strength. Even if she stood in front of Luo Qintong and Hu Zhongtian, she would only lose one more person. There was no way she could block the great-granduncle's attack. Little Pig clenched his teeth as he watched this scene unfold. Sigh. Let's fight. He leaped up and rushed toward the attack. With the little strength he had accumulated in his body, he wasn't sure if he could block the attack. If he couldn't even block this attack, he would be finished. Then he would have sacrificed his body for nothing. Just as Little Pig was thinking about this, another figure suddenly rushed in front of him and collided with the attack with a bang. Ah! Amidst that scream, the second elder's body lay on the ground on the verge of death. After twitching twice, his eyes were wide open and there was no sign of life. At the critical moment, Luo Qintong took out a strand of her mental strength and controlled the Gu mother to rush back. However, before Little Pig, Hu Fei, and the others could breathe a sigh of relief after the attack was blocked, they heard a loud bang. It was the place where great-granduncle was. His figure instantly turned into countless fragments of light and disappeared in front of them. Not good. Little Pig's eyes instantly widened when he saw this scene. It's a smokescreen. He shouted and immediately turned around to look at Luo Qintong. Sure enough, he saw a faint figure suddenly appear beside Luo Qintong. Humph. Cunning brat, I knew you were strange. Did you think I would stop with just one killing move? The great-granduncle's expression was ferocious. After this battle, he already knew that Luo Qingtong wasn't simple. Since that was the case, how could he simply throw out a killing move and be done with it? He wanted Luo Qingtong to die. He didn't want to leave any future troubles. Did she think she could still dodge his attack with her strange tricks and tricks? The great-granduncle sneered. He raised his hand and slapped toward Luo Qingtong's head. The attack just now was just a smokescreen. This attack was the real killing move. Moreover, at such a close distance, he wouldn't give her any chance to escape. Ha! Damned brat, you and Hu Zhongtian are going to die together. As long as he killed Luo Qingtong, he would kill Hu Zhongtian with a backhand. Neither of them should even think about escaping. The great-granduncle's voice became even more ferocious. As he slapped his hand was to attack, the great-granduncle. Then, they turned into streams of energy that were added to his palm, causing the strength of his palm to become even more terrifying. It was almost enough to shake the mountains and move the earth. Master! 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 Hu Yinyang, Hu Fei, and Little Pig cried out in alarm. Luo Qingtong also felt the frightening wind coming from the palm above her head. The surging great-granduncle almost blew her hair loose. Luo Qingtong frowned as she looked at the situation inside Hu Zhongtian's body. There was only one transverse bone left. But there wasn't enough time. It wasn't impossible for Luo Qingtong to avoid this killer move. But what about Hu Zhongtian? Chapter 13-17. Luo Qingtong was deep in thought when suddenly, a red light flashed on the ring finger of her left hand. At the same time, in the courtyard where Luo Qingtong lived. Swoosh! Yi Qianxian, who had been curled up and sleeping soundly under the blanket with his tail as his pillow, suddenly opened his eyes. Qingtong! He let out a low cry in his heart and let out a warning cry from his mouth. In an instant, his figure disappeared from the bed. When the family who guards outside heard the commotion and looked through the window, they couldn't even see a single strand of fox fur. Oh no! The silver fox is gone. The guards had been ordered by Luo Qingtong to watch over the silver fox. They couldn't let it run away like last time and almost get caught. But this time, the silver fox suddenly disappeared. The guards in the courtyard were instantly thrown into chaos. Just as the guards in the courtyard were in chaos, Yi Qianxian suddenly appeared beside Luo Qingtong. Roar! When he saw the great-granduncle attack Luo Qingtong with his palm, the saber-light and blood-red swords in his eyes seemed to want to fly out and fly towards the great-granduncle. How dare he hurt his Qingtong! Bang! Yi Qianxian's body instantly leaped from Luo Qingtong's body and rushed towards the great-granduncle's palm. Boom! As his body leaped up, the little bit of power that he had spent so much effort to dissolve in the body of the small fox suddenly surged out and cooperated with the resonance of the 9 Netherworld Phoenix Ring and the Omnidirectional Dragon Ring. The Omnidirectional Dragon Ring on the silver fox's paw vibrated slightly. Then, a faintly discernible shadow suddenly appeared behind it. As it waved its little paw, a palm blasted forward. The shadow's back was facing Luo Qingtong. It had silver clothes and black hair. It was dignified and as handsome as a god. The wind from the palm was as if the sky and earth had been turned upside down. This? Seeing the sudden appearance of the shadow, the great-granduncle was stunned for a moment. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Originally, he thought it was funny that a silver fox had appeared to block his attack. Now that he saw this illusory figure, he couldn't smile anymore. The opponent seemed to be a person. A person whose reputation was known throughout the entire continent. Almost no one dared to provoke him, and no one didn't fear him. Black, his eyes bulged out of their sockets in shock. But before he could finish his sentence, the silver fox's paw came down on him. At the same time, the faintly discernible shadow that had appeared behind it had also arrived. Bang! The great-granduncle was sent flying in an instant. After that, Yi Qianren's body also fell from the sky with a pa-ji sound. He fell into Luo Qingtong's arms. This body of his couldn't use the battle skills and strength of a human. Relying on the connection between the omnidirectional dragon ring and the 9 netherworld phoenix ring, he forced himself to use it. In an instant, the little bit of power in his body was completely drained, and he fainted. Silver treasure. Luo Qingtong was originally very surprised that the silver fox had appeared here. But when she saw that it had exhausted itself to save her and fell into her arms, the blood in her eyes became even colder. The blood in her eyes surged rapidly, and it was incomparably intense. Old dog. You're courting death. Chapter 13-18. Then, her blood-red eyes flashed, and she looked coldly at the great-uncle who had been slapped away. Bang! Luo Qingtong raised her hand, and 3 needle-like forces penetrated her Baihui acupoint in an instant. Instantly, Luo Qingtong's strength skyrocketed. Bang! The forces that she probed into Hu Zhongtian's body surged rapidly and removed the transverse bone and flesh. Then, she suddenly raised her hand and slapped. That hyoid bone was instantly crushed into powder by her hand. Boom! Hu Zhongtian's aura instantly shot through the sky like a rainbow. His cultivation that surpassed the Saint Realm had completely recovered, and all the forces in his body were connected. Spare his dog life. I want to deal with him personally. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she raised her hand and handed Hu Zhongtian a bottle of medicinal liquid. Although she had already tried her best not to damage Hu Zhongtian's internal organs, injuries and pain were still unavoidable. Drinking this bottle of medicinal liquid would help Hu Zhongtian's injuries recover faster. She wanted that great-uncle to suffer a fate worse than death. Don't worry, young master. Hu Zhongtian took the bottle of medicinal liquid and drank it all in one gulp. Then, his figure flashed, and he instantly appeared in front of the 5 clan elders who were pestering Hu Fei. Those people were still pestering Hu Fei and not letting him leave. After the second elder, their shield, was temporarily transferred away by Luo Qingtong, they still wanted to take the opportunity to kill Hu Fei. Now, the latter was covered in injuries under their siege. When Hu Zhongtian appeared, they were instantly dumbfounded. You. How can you be fine? Their faces were filled with shock. They couldn't believe that great-granduncle wouldn't be able to kill Yi Jiu and Hu Zhongtian. How was this possible? Their great-uncle was an expert who surpassed the Saint Realm. Unless the Yi Jiu was an immortal who had descended to the mortal world, it was impossible for him to block their great-uncle's attack. They could not figure out what was going on. Everyone was so frightened that their hearts trembled. They turned around and wanted to escape. However, it was too late. Since Hu Zhongtian had already recovered his cultivation, how could he let them escape? Since the other party wanted to annihilate their main branch, then they would also leave them here for good. Didn't they want family Hu? If they left the corpse here, the entire family Hu would be theirs. Hu Zhongtian's expression was cold. He attacked and killed them all. The elders didn't even have the chance to escape as they screamed and died one by one at the hands of Hu Zhongtian. As for the great-granduncle, he struggled to get up from the ground. Yi Qianqian's attack had a limited effect on the cub's body, so he wasn't able to kill him with a single slap. If he was in his human form, this great-granduncle would have died a long time ago. Bang! He had just stood up, and before he could regain his senses, Hu Zhongtian had already killed the 5 clan elders, as well as the rest of the clan members who had come with them. In an instant, he appeared in front of him and raised his palm to slap him. Leave him to me. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. You stand guard at the side. Luo Qingtong clenched the 1,000-year soul guiding wood tightly in her hand. There wasn't much power left in it. Luo Qingtong had not intended to use it carelessly. But now... Chapter 13:19. Humph. Do you think you can touch me? The great uncle sneered. He didn't take Luo Qingtong seriously at all. She even planned to use this opportunity to control Luo Qingtong in her hands. He had already discovered that the other clans were all dead. Now, he was the only member of the clan left. If he didn't seize this opportunity, he would also die here. It just so happened that this Yi Jiu thought that he was strong enough and wanted to kill him himself. He was simply overestimating himself. He sneered as he watched Luo Qingtong approach him. He had already reached out to grab Luo Qingtong. Because he realized that Hu Zhongtian had actually listened to Luo Qingtong and didn't attack him. This was really an excellent opportunity. As for the little fox and the shadow behind it, it was probably just an accident. The great uncle, who had survived a great disaster, didn't take this matter seriously at all. After all, if it was really that Blackfield Underworld Venerable who attacked, how could he have a chance to survive? Now that Luo Qingtong was courting death, he should quickly capture her and use her to threaten Hu Zhongtian. With this thought, he sneered even more and reached out to grab Luo Qingtong. Young master. Hu Zhongtian watched from the side and was a little worried. But ever since Luo Qingtong entered the residence, she had been creating miracles. Although Hu Zhongtian was worried, he didn't rashly stop her. The young man had used many incidents to prove that listening to him was the right thing to do. Bang! Luo Qingtong watched coldly as the great uncle's hand reached out to grab her. The bloody light in her eyes flickered. Then, with a swoosh, she dodged the attack. The life and death duality sword in her hand switched instantly. The life blade absorbed, and the death blade cut. In addition, Luo Qingtong's pupil technique saw through the weakness. In the blink of an eye, a bloody gash appeared on the hand of the great-granduncle. What? The great-granduncle was shocked. Although he was afraid of Hu Zhongtian and did not use his true strength that surpassed the sage realm, the protective aura around him was not that easy to break through. Where did this young man named Yi Jiu come from? How could he do such a terrifying thing? While he was still in shock, Luo Qingtong's cold voice rang in his ears. Old dog, do you know what death by 1,000 cuts is? It's okay if you don't know. I'll let you enjoy yourself today. The silver fox's soft body was nestled against her chest, and it looked so weak and helpless. This caused the fury in Luo Qing's heart to erupt like a volcano, and she vented it at her great uncle. It was rare for her to devote so much effort to a little fellow. Especially since this was a gift from Yi Qianxian. But because of this old dog in front of him, he almost got into trouble. If she didn't skin him alive, she wouldn't be able to vent the anger in her heart. Bang! Luo Qingtong swung her sword at her great-uncle again. The latter had just suffered a loss and subconsciously wanted to use his true strength to fight back. However, at this moment, Hu Zhongtian took advantage of the situation and caught his attack. Luo Qingtong's sword accurately cut his other hand. Ah! That great-granduncle screamed. Luo Qingtong's sword was so heavy that it almost cut off his entire wrist. Chapter 13:20. The smile on Luo Qingtong's lips was cold. The girl's smile was evil and enchanting. Even though she was wearing men's clothing, she was not inferior in the slightest. The aura that was revealed completely broke through the disguise of Cheong Chi's 100 changes. It made Luo Qingtong's ordinary face stand out from the rest. The great-uncle looked at her slightly raised lips and held his severed right hand. In an instant, his body trembled violently and he almost broke down and cried. Luo Qingtong's aura looked too much like a gorgeous demon that had crawled out of hell. evil and full of murderous intent. It was only now that the great-uncle realized what kind of person he had provoked. She was just a martial ancestor. Normally, he would be able to crush him to death with a single finger. But now, she had forced him into such a miserable state. When he was preparing to seize control of family Hu and kill Hu Zhongtian's family, the great-uncle did not expect that it would be such a young man, a martial ancestor. He had ruined their plans. The great-uncle cried bitterly and begged for mercy. Luo Qingtong did not pay any attention to him. When the other party dared to attack her and family Hu, their fate was already sealed. Begging for mercy. If she had not turned the situation around today. If she had not stayed to watch the show today, would they have spared Hu Zhongtian's family? Would they have spared her? Luo Qingtong would never listen to the remorse and regret of these losers. Because she knew that they had lost. That was why they had no choice but to beg for mercy. If they were the ones who won today, they would only happily reap the lives of their own people. Winner takes all. What was there to reason with? Luo Qingtong would never forget a sentence, and that was, being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to yourself. This was a lesson that she had learned through countless blood and tears and countless experiences of being hunted down. Luo Qingtong slowly cut the great-uncle's body. The latter was still desperately begging for mercy at first, but when he saw that Luo Qingtong was not moved at all, he screamed and cursed loudly. Don't be so smug. Don't think that without us, family Hu can sit back and relax. The Bai family has already promised the second elder to help him seize control of family Hu. Moreover, the Bai family is determined to get that map. Hu Zhongtian, you're in trouble because of your wealth. Sooner or later, you'll be at the mercy of others. Ha! I'll see how you die. He screamed at the top of his lungs and his entire body trembled violently. He was almost reduced to a skeleton by Luo Qingtong. At this moment, the voice of a guard's report came from outside. Master, there are people from the Bai family. Of the Luo Qingtong's family. The Bai family is here. The great-uncle laughed out loud. His dark eyes looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong and the others. His laughter was full of pride and joy. He did not expect that the Bai family would come in time to save his life. He shouted, Hu Zhongtian, if you know what's good for you, let me go immediately. Otherwise, the Bai family will make you die miserably. Chapter 13:21. When he said this, his murderous intent was obvious. All of it was directed at Luo Qingtong. That Yi Jiu dared to torture him like this. He must kill him. Really? Sure. Unexpectedly, before Hu Zhongtian could speak, Luo Qingtong had already nodded with a smile. I'll let you go. Not only will I let you go, but I'll also send you off. Luo Qingtong said. Then, under the gaze of the great-granduncle, she slit his throat. Bang! Luo Qingtong lifted her foot and kicked his skeleton to one side. Then, she asked outside the door, how many people from the Bai family are here? Who are they? There's a team of guards and an elder. The guard outside answered. Master. The Bai family must be here to force my father to hand over that thing. Not only that, they must be cooperating with the second elder to force my father to give up his position. When Hu Yannyang heard the guard outside report that the Bai family had come to see her, she had already guessed the other party's intentions. Her eyes immediately turned cold. Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei were also very angry. The two of them said coldly, these bastards from the Bai family are here at the right time. Our family whose revenge is about to be settled with them one by one. When Hu Zhongtian said this, he immediately ordered the guards outside in a cold voice, invite them in. Invite them in and they won't have to go out anymore. Hu Zhongtian's face was full of anger. Yes. The guard outside received the order and immediately turned to leave. Outside the gate of Family Hu, a team of people from the Bai family was waiting. Sixth Elder, do you think this Hu Zhongtian will obediently listen to our orders and hand over the Hu clan's authority in that thing? He was very stubborn before. In front of the Bai family team, the leader of the guard said to the sixth elder. Humph. The sixth elder snorted and said, stubborn. It has to be more stubborn than his life. Hu Zhongtian is already a dead man. Hu Fei is also a bedridden vegetable. In addition, Yen Yang and her idiot son have returned. If Hu Zhongtian wants to protect them, he has to do as we say. Previously, we didn't have enough bargaining chips, and his life was tough enough. I'm afraid that if I push him too hard, he'll leak the information about that thing. That's why I let him drag it out until now. Otherwise, do you really think that their family who can protect that thing from us? The sixth elder sneered, this time, even if he wants to, he has to. I don't want to. You have to agree. Brilliant. Brilliant move. The guard commander hurriedly flattered, Patriarch, they really didn't leave anything out. They have calculated everything. But sixth elder, are we really going to help Hu Zhongtian protect Hu Fei and Hu Yenyang after we get the items? Wouldn't that cause endless trouble in the future? The guard commander said. Humph. How is that possible? The sixth elder laughed sinisterly. Hu Fei and Hu Yenyang will all die. Especially Hu Yenyang and her son. Patriarch has already given the order to act as soon as we get the items. When the time comes, we just have to push all the blame onto Family Hu, the clan, and the second elder's people. Chapter 13:22. The sixth elder's expression was cold and gloomy. Hu Zhongtian and his family must die. Although he did not know why the Bai family head would give such an order, Family Hu was no longer a threat to the Bai family. It was no longer the time when the Bai clan needed to rely on the Hu clan to survive. Hu Zhongtian was dying of illness and Hu Fei was in a coma. Although Hu Yenyang had returned, she had given birth to a foolish son. There was nothing to be afraid of. The sixth elder could not understand why the Bai family head wanted to exterminate Hu Zhongtian and his family. However, this had nothing to do with them. They only needed to carry out the order. After all, this matter was decided by the Bai family head and the first young miss. The sixth elder admired Bai Feng, who was the first young miss of the Bai family. The Bai family's present situation was mostly thanks to Bai Feng. Her words in the Bai family were more effective than Bai Changfeng's. Therefore, after knowing that the decision was made by Bai Feng, the sixth elder and the others did not have any objections even if they did not understand. Oh right, there's someone called Yi Jiu inside. The first young miss said to capture him for questioning. When you make your move later, remember not to kill him. It's best to capture him first. Then we'll kill Hu Zhongtian and his family. The sixth elder said. The reason Bai Feng gave such an order was naturally because of the Gu Poison Mother. Although she did not think that the loss of contact with the Gu Poison Mother and the destruction of the Voodoo sect had anything to do with Family Hu. However, Bai Feng's thoughts were meticulous and vicious. When the Voodoo sect was in trouble, she ordered the Voodoo sect to awaken the Gu Poison Mother and kill Hu Fei. That Yi Jiu knew medicine and seemed to be related to the imperial family. Bai Feng naturally wanted to capture him and interrogate him. If he really had nothing to do with this matter, it did not matter. She could just kill him when the time came. With his relationship with the imperial family and his help in Chu Lingfeng's matter, Bai Feng would not let this Yi Jiu go if she wanted to exterminate Hu Zhongtian and his family. It was only a matter of time before he and Hu Zhongtian's family died. As for the imperial family, this was the far west wilderness, not the southern region. Without evidence, what could the people of the imperial family do to her? Moreover, once family whose item was in their hands and they joined forces with the Hua family, the Bai family status would immediately rise. At that time, with a high branch like the Ouyang family, even if the imperial sect wanted to touch their Bai family, it wouldn't be that easy. When Bai Feng had sent her men out, she had already thought of a way to deal with this situation. Unfortunately, she hadn't thought of Luo Qingtong's existence. As a result, she had completely collapsed from the start. The Bai family and family whose guards entered the Bai family's residence together. Along the way, the sixth elder and the others were full of arrogance. If they weren't wrong, then the members of the Hu clan, the second elder, and the others had probably arrived here a long time ago. Sixth elder and the others had purposely trailed behind the other party. It was all for the sake of giving Hu Zhongtian and the others a heavy blow when they were at their most desperate. This way, the other party would obediently hand over that thing. When the members of the Bai family entered the family Hu, the corpses of great-granduncle and second elder had all been disposed of in the lobby. A faint, strange fragrance floated in the air. The furnishings and the surroundings had also been replaced. Chapter 13:23. Luo Qingtong calmly sat down below Hu Yenyang with the silver fox in her arms. Hu Fei, on the other hand, was hiding behind the screen. They wanted to see what the Bai family had to say. Luo Qingtong held the silver fox in her arms. Her hand seemed to be caressing it, but in reality, she was using her power to probe the little guy's body. Although her blood confirmed that the little guy's body wasn't damaged in any way, the little guy was still too small. Luo Qingtong was afraid that the little guy's body would be damaged if she couldn't detect it. That would affect its future growth. After all, the little guy's claws had sent great-uncle, who had surpassed the Saint Realm, flying. It took him a long time to get up. This wasn't a power that an ordinary fox could display. Luo Qingtong was afraid that the little guy had used some secret technique that was beyond his age. It would be troublesome if his body was damaged. But speaking of which, Luo Qingtong didn't expect the silver fox to be so strong. She thought it was just a little fox. No matter how strong it was, it couldn't be that strong. She didn't expect the little fox that Yi Qianxian gave her to be so extraordinary. No wonder he put the 10-direction dragon ring on it. But Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. Was she imagining things? When Silver Baby had waved its claws earlier, she seemed to have seen a faint shadow appear behind it. That shadow! It looked like Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong thought to herself and looked down at the silver fox in her arms. The little guy's eyes were closed, and he was curled up in her arms. Its small nose was red and tender, and its big fluffy tail was wrapped around its body, under its head. He looked indescribably cute. Luo Qingtong looked at the little fox and couldn't help but touch its little nose. She smiled and said, "You little guy, don't tell me you're Yi Qianxian." As Luo Qingtong said this, she was instantly amused by her own thoughts. She was imagining things too much. How could Yi Qianxian turn into a little fox? Even if he could really change, it was impossible for him to change into such a cute little fox. Luo Qingtong thought about the little guy's cute face when he was grabbing the grasshopper and asking for the chicken. She couldn't help but laugh again. She couldn't imagine Yi Qianxian doing something like that. If this little fox was him, he would never do such a thing even if he was beaten to death, right? Luo Qingtong thought this and pinched the little fox's ears. She had just checked the little guy's body, and there was nothing wrong with it. However, there seemed to be a very powerful force hidden in its body. It was bottomless. Luo Qingtong didn't probe too much. This should be the reason why the little guy was able to make such a powerful attack. As for why Yi Qianxian's shadow appeared behind it, it should be because of the Shifang dragon ring. That man had inserted his power into the ring, and this little guy had inadvertently triggered it. Luo Qingtong thought this and felt relieved. She didn't think too much about it. Yi Qianxian didn't know that his identity had almost been exposed. Chapter 1324. When Luo Qingtong's power entered the silver fox's body, the hidden power of the heavenly fox's blood essence dissolved even faster. When Luo Qingtong finished examining the silver fox's body, the Bai family also stepped into the hall. Family Hu. Seeing Hu Zhongtian sitting in the main seat of the hall, the sixth elder and the others felt a little strange, but they didn't put it in their eyes. After all, as Bai Changfeng's confidants, they all know what's going on with Hu Zhongtian's body. It's absolutely impossible to cure the other party. When he took the bottle of medicinal liquid that increased the number of broken bones in his body, he was already doomed to die. Right now, he's probably just trying to maintain his last shred of dignity, right? Thinking so, the sixth elder and the others suddenly walked in with a cold snort. Family Hu, it's been a long time since we last met, are you safe and sound? The sixth elder's words weren't anything good. Everyone knows that Hu Zhongtian is seriously ill, yet he still asks if the other party is safe and sound. The sarcasm and malice in his words can be heard by everyone. If Hu Zhongtian was still seriously ill, he'd probably spit out a mouthful of blood after hearing these words. But now that his body has recovered, he looks at the sixth elder and the others like he's looking at a group of clowns. Even Hu Yannyang is sitting coldly in the seat below, looking at the sixth elder and the others with a sneer, not angry at all. Sometimes, watching others jump around like fools in front of you is also a kind of pleasure. They want to see what new tricks the Bai family can come up with. Thank you sixth elder and family head Bai for your concern, it's all thanks to you. Of course I'm safe and sound. Hu Zhongtian's voice is cold. Isn't it all thanks to them? If it weren't for them forcing Yan Yang to leave and almost dying outside, how could she know Luo Qingtong? If they didn't know Luo Qingtong, even if they were forced to death by the Bai family, no one would help them. Now the reign is over. It's time for Family Hu to take revenge. Ha! Family Hu really knows how to joke. Of course, the sixth elder wouldn't take Hu Zhongtian's words seriously. As far as he was concerned, they'd been forced into a corner by the second elder's line and the Hu clan. Now that he saw the Bai clan's people come, he guessed their purpose. That was why he gritted his teeth and said those words. Patriarch Hu's words really hurt our patriarch's feelings. Back then, our Bai family helped your family Hu a lot. This time, I asked for that item from Family Hu because I didn't want a pearl to be covered in dust. After all, that thing is completely useless in the hands of you and Family Hu. Family Hu doesn't have the ability to use it either. But it's different if you hand it over to our Bai clan. Our Bai family has the support of the Huo family. Once we succeed in exploring the Saint Monarch's tomb, our Bai family will have a meteoric rise, and your family Hu will also benefit from it. What's more, Family Hu, you don't have much time left. Even if you don't plan for yourself, you should plan for Hu Fei and Yan Yang, right? At this point, the sixth elder glanced at Hu Yannyang proudly and said, "We're also very sorry about what happened to Yannyang back then." Chapter 1325. Second elder's bloodline will definitely inherit Family Hu. Although Yannyang is a direct descendant, she is a woman and has been involved in such a disgraceful scandal. It is impossible for her to inherit Family Hu. But as long as head of Family Hu hands over that thing, we will have a reason to intervene in Family Hu's affairs after your death. We will protect them and prevent them from dying too miserably. What do you say, head of Family Hu? At the end of his words, the sixth elder had completely revealed his true colors and threatened Hu Zhongtian. The meaning of his words was very obvious. Unless he did not care about the life and death of Hu Fei and Hu Yannyang. Otherwise, he could only do as they said and hand over that thing. The sixth elder didn't even want to make a better promise. In the past, when they negotiated with Hu Zhongtian, they would use the reason that Hu Fei was in a coma to protect him and not let second elder's bloodline bully him. Now that Yan Nyang was back, they did not even mention anything about letting her inherit family Hu. Instead, they used the past to belittle her. They looked down on her. On one hand, they wanted Hu Zhongtian to hand over that thing, and on the other hand, they firmly supported second elder's bloodline to inherit family Hu. Everyone could hear the perfunctory and coercive tone in their words. This sixth elder was relying on the fact that he had all of Hu Zhongtian's Achilles heel in his hands, so he did not bother to hide anything. Before Yan Nyang came back, they were afraid that if they pressured Hu Zhongtian into a life-and-death struggle and spread the news of that thing, by then, the Bai family would have nothing to gain. But now, Yan Nyang was back. And she had brought back a silly son. With Hu Zhongtian's guilt and love towards the mother and son, he would definitely agree to their request. By then, the sixth elder sneered, and before Hu Zhongtian could speak, he said, "By the way, there is a young man called Yi Zhou in family Hu, right? I heard that he is a friend of your grandson. Our eldest miss wants to invite him to the Bai family as a guest. You can ask him to come out." The sixth elder said. "Oh, for me." Luo Qingtong did not expect that she was involved in this matter. She was carelessly holding the silver fox in her arms. Her face was contented, and her body was lazily leaning against the large armchair. One leg was slightly bent, looking very unbridled and languid. When she heard the sixth elder's words, she immediately raised her eyes and looked at him. "Bai Feng?" That woman was not an ordinary scheming and vicious woman. He had done everything he could to the voodoo sect without leaving any traces behind. There was no way she could have guessed that he was the culprit. She did not expect that she would not let her identity, Yi Zhou, go. She would rather kill the wrong person than let her go. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up her lips. With just a casual thought, she could roughly guess the reason why Bai Feng had invited her over. But this time, she would have to disappoint Bai Feng. "Yans! How dare you call the eldest miss by her name?" The sixth elder didn't expect that the young man sitting in the hall was Yi Zhou. This was really a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. But wasn't this family Hu father and daughter a little too weak? Such an ordinary-looking young man with average strength dared to be so presumptuous and disrespectful in front of them in the hall where they were meeting important guests. Chapter 13:26. The sixth elder thought to himself disdainfully. Then, he waved his hand and said to the guards beside him, "Capture Yi Zhou. How dare he disrespect eldest miss? He will be sent to eldest miss for interrogation." After saying that, he turned to Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yannyang, who had stood up abruptly, and said confidently, "Patriarch Hu, Yannyang, don't blame me for making a move here. This Yi Zhou is too daring. Not to mention his disrespect to our eldest miss. He has no respect for you. I know you can't do anything to him because of your feelings. I will teach him a lesson on your behalf." His words were both shameless and arrogant. Pfft. Luo Qingtong could not help but laugh when she heard that. Teach her a lesson. Or teach her a lesson on behalf of Hu Zhongtian. This sixth elder really dared to say this. In her previous life, those who dared to say such words in front of Luo Qingtong and put it into action had all died miserably. This sixth elder was no exception. Luo Qingtong looked at the Bai family guards who were rushing towards her without even blinking. She still maintained that comfortable and languid sitting posture as she said indifferently, "All right, the show is almost over. You are almost clear about the situation. You can take action now." Following Luo Qingtong's words, the sixth elder looked in the direction of the main door with vigilance. He thought that Luo Qingtong meant that she had arranged for someone else to ambush them. However, when he looked over, he did not see any movement outside the gate. The sixth elder immediately sneered and turned his head to look at the sixth elder. Ha! Pretending to be mysterious. Yi Jiu, right? Don't think that you can escape by saying this. Before he could finish his words, his face was stiff and he stood there in a daze. Opposite him, the Bai family guards were all lying on the ground without any signs of life. You! The sixth elder looked at the scene in shock. What shocked him even more was the cold aura that emanated from Hu Zhongtian's body. Beyond the Saint Realm. This aura was solid, powerful, and soaring to the heavens. This meant that the hidden danger in Hu Zhongtian's body had been completely removed. You've recovered. The sixth elder's eyes were wide open, protruding like goldfish bubbles. He couldn't believe his eyes. How could Hu Zhongtian's illness be cured? His illness, are you surprised? Hu Zhongtian's face was filled with a cold smile and killing intent as he snapped the neck of the last Bai family guard in his hands. At this point, all the Bai family guards who rushed towards Luo Qingtong to capture her were completely annihilated. I've already said it before. It's all thanks to your Bai family that my body is safe and sound. It's obvious that you didn't listen to me. Hu Zhongtian's sneer became even more obvious when he said this. That's right. Didn't you set up this trap and swap my healing medicine so that I would be ground to death by the broken bones in my body? What a pity. I'm afraid you didn't expect this. Back then, Bai Feng schemed to frame Yan Yang and sent people to kill her. She narrowly escaped death. In the end, she met the ninth young master. Chapter 1327. If I had fallen into the hands of others, I would have died. However, in the hands of the ninth young master, I have completely turned the situation around. Turning misfortune into blessings. From now on, all the hidden dangers have been removed and my cultivation has been restored. By Tiantong. From today onwards, it will be the end of the Bai family. The Bai family had really gone too far. Ever since Bai Feng had plotted against Yan Yang, the Bai family had continuously stepped on family whose declined to rise. They had been kind to others and Yan Yang had even treated Bai Feng as her sister. She had protected the Bai family during their most difficult period in Wildland City. However, how had the Bai family repaid them? Yan Yang had gotten pregnant before marriage and missed out on the engagement with the Hua family. She had been accused of being a slut. She had illicit relations with others. Family who had been humiliated. His son, Hu Fei, had a bright future and should have become a dazzling star in Wildland City. However, he had been forced into a deep sleep during the best years of his life. He had been bedridden for more than 10 years. If it had not been for Luo Qingtong, if it had not been for her extraordinary abilities, medical skills, and knowledge of the Gu technique, Hu Fei would have been a useless person even if he had woken up today. As for himself, he had almost been forced to his death on the bed by the Bai family. Their goal was to get what Bai Feng had gotten from framing Yan Yang. Only the heavens knew that if time could be turned back, life could be restarted. He would rather use that so-called compensation in exchange for his daughter's most beautiful smile. These people deserved to die. Bai Feng deserved to die. Everyone in the Bai family deserved to die. Hu Zhongtian's eyes were filled with tears of blood. His expression was terrifying. The two people he cared about the most in his life. His pearl, his pride, his light and hope. All of it had been destroyed by the Bai family. Even though Hu Fei had recovered his strength and Yan Yang was doing well, the memories of the past could not be washed away. The sorrow of the past could not be forgotten. He wanted the Bai family to pay with their blood. You! The sixth elder was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. You actually know everything. They even knew that eldest miss was the one who had harmed Yen Yang. The sixth elder's heart trembled to the extreme. He was frightened by Hu Zhongtian's words. It wasn't because he was afraid that Hu Zhongtian and the others would seek revenge after finding out the truth. Instead, he was afraid that once Hu Zhongtian and the others knew the truth, they would spread the news. The person who took away Yen Yang's virginity, if he knew what happened back then. Thinking of this, the sixth elder's body suddenly trembled violently. He had heard the young miss and the family had mentioned more than once that the identity of the man who took Yen Yang's virginity was no small matter. Now that Hu Zhongtian and Hu Yenyang knew the truth, no way. He had to rush back immediately. Tell the patriarch and the eldest miss to get ready. They had to kill Hu Zhongtian and the others at all costs. With that thought in mind, he immediately said to the guard commander beside him, "Quick! Hurry up and stop Hu Zhongtian. I will immediately go back and inform the family head and the others." That guard commander also knew the seriousness of the matter and immediately blocked in front of him in a flash. However, before the sixth elder could turn around and leave, a voice rang out. At this moment, a figure came out from behind the screen and looked at them coldly. "Sixth elder, where are you going? Since you're here, then don't leave." Chapter 13:28. You. Looking at this figure, the sixth elder and the others were shocked beyond words. In an instant, they couldn't even speak properly. Hu Fei. They called out his name in shock and disbelief as they looked at the figure that emerged from behind the screen. Solid aura, vigorous fluctuations of strength. The Hu Fei standing in front of them didn't seem to be pale and dispirited from being bedridden for more than a decade. Instead, he was strong and powerful, his body straight and firm. It was as if he hadn't been bedridden, paralyzed, or unconscious for the past decade, but had been in closed-door cultivation. And the sage realm fluctuations that came from this man's body caused the sixth elder's face to turn pale with fright. Just like great-granduncle and the others, the sixth elder couldn't figure out why Hu Fei had been bedridden for so many years, but his cultivation and strength had risen instead. Just what had happened to family Hu during this time? As he was thinking this, he suddenly remembered Hu Zhongtian's words. Then, his eyes locked onto Lu Qingtong, who was still lazily sitting in the armchair, gently stroking the sleeping silver fox in her arms. "It's you." This Yi Jiu had changed the fate of family Hu. He had cured Hu Zhongtian and awakened Hu Fei. He had even made Hu Fei's strength break through during this time. Just who was this person? Why did he have such abilities? The young miss had clearly said that Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei could not be cured. Hu Zhongtian was one thing. But Hu Fei's coma had been hidden from the man who had taken Yen Yang's virginity. With that man's strength and status, he hadn't been able to see through it. How could this youth have seen through it? Not only that, but he had also awakened Hu Fei and restored his cultivation. As the sixth elder thought this, his heart suddenly trembled with horror. "You, who the hell are you?" With such outstanding medical skills and abilities, it was impossible for this person to be unknown in the true Spill continent. But no matter how the sixth elder searched his memories, he couldn't find the name Yi Jiu. If this person wasn't hiding too deeply, then he was using a fake name. "You are not qualified to know my master's identity." Luo Qingtong glanced at the sixth elder indifferently. She didn't say anything, but Yen Yang coldly said, "Master, the other party's background was indeed extraordinary." The sixth elder was horrified. He looked at Luo Qingtong's youthful face, that calm and demonic aura. Suddenly, a thought popped into his mind. What if this young man's face is not fake, but his real age? Then, within the sky's spill continent, for someone to possess such a young age and also possess such profound and terrifying medical skills, you are. The sixth elder seemed to have thought of something and instantly looked as if he had seen a ghost. He pointed at Luo Qingtong and was speechless for a long time. Seeing that he seemed to have guessed her identity, Luo Qingtong's lips curved slightly, then she waved her hand. Kill him. Her voice was concise and to the point, revealing absolute coldness and ruthlessness. Towards her enemies, Luo Qingtong had never been merciful. Not to mention, the other party had already guessed her identity. That meant he had to die. Chapter 1329. She likes the feeling of being in the dark while the enemy is out in the open. Who made the rule that only the enemy can cause trouble in the dark? She likes it too. Yes. As Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei, who could no longer hold themselves back, charged towards Sixth Elder and the others. The latter's group was only a guard commander and Sixth Elder were only at the saint stage. In front of Hu Zhongtian and his son, they were nothing. Sixth Elder's words were cut short and he did not even have the chance to escape before he was surrounded and killed by Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei. He, along with the group of by-family guards who had swaggered over, and the commander of the guards, had all died at the hands of Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei. At the moment of his death, Sixth Elder only had one thought in his mind: it's over. It's completely over. The Bai family is finished. He's finished too. Bang! The bodies of Sixth Elder and the others crashed heavily onto the ground. However, Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei's faces were still filled with malice. Their eyes were bloodshot and when they looked at the bodies of Sixth Elder and the others, their eyes were filled with unconcealable hatred and viciousness. It's not enough. Just the blood of these people is not enough. The blood, tears, pain, and suffering of their family for so many years can only be washed away with the blood of the Bai family. Bang! Hu Zhongtian took a step forward and grabbed the body of a Bai family guard, tearing it into pieces. Ah! He raised his head to the sky and howled. His howl was filled with years of forbearance and restraint. Now, he unleashed it all. Hu Fei stood beside him with bloodshot eyes. Both father and son looked at Luo Qingtong at the same time. With a bang, Hu Zhongtian was the first to kneel on the ground, followed by Hu Fei. Ninth young master. Hu Zhongtian's eyes were bloodshot. He kowtowed to Luo Qingtong and said solemnly, "You've saved our family Hu's life. Father and son have no way to repay your kindness. We should repay you with our bodies and pledge our loyalty to you, young master. But the Bai family and our family who have great enmity. We, father and son, have no choice but to take revenge for more than 10 years of suffering. We dare not implicate you, young master. Please leave quickly and don't stay in family Hu any longer. We will go to the Bai family for revenge. Please take care of Yan Nyang and Ling Feng." At this point, Hu Zhongtian kowtowed 3 times to Luo Qingtong. The sufferings that his children had suffered, and the humiliation that he had suffered, he would definitely seek revenge from the Bai family. This was a battle of revenge that belonged to family Hu. Luo Qingtong should not be implicated. As for Yan Nyang and Chu Lingfeng, following Luo Qingtong would be better than staying in family Hu. It could also be considered as leaving behind a trace of their family Hu bloodline. At this time, Hu Zhongtian no longer had any worries about his family and clan. His entire being was indescribably relaxed, and he no longer had any regrets. After kowtowing to Luo Qingtong, he stood up and prepared to leave. Behind him, Hu Fei also kowtowed 3 times to Luo Qingtong with red eyes. Then, he stood up and followed behind his father, preparing to leave. As his son and the future successor of family Hu, he was duty-bound to avenge family Hu. Father. Big brother. Hu Yanyan looked at the backs of the two of them as they left. Instantly, her heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife, and tears streamed down her face. Master. Please let me go with father and brother. Yen Yang once said that her life belongs to Master. But at this moment, I really can't let myself stay out of this. Chapter 1330. Hu Yanyan knelt on the ground. Ever since she was saved by Luo Qingtong and swore her loyalty to Luo Qingtong, her life belonged to Luo Qingtong. She shouldn't have said such words. However, she really couldn't just watch Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei leave. Since they were a family, they should live and die together. Now that Chu Lingfeng had Luo Qingtong's protection, she had no regrets. The only one she felt guilty towards was Luo Qingtong. Yen Yang is unfaithful, please grant my wish, mistress. Please grant my wish, mistress. Yen Yang knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Luo Qingtong twice. Enough. When she kowtowed for the third time, Luo Qingtong suddenly flicked her sleeve and stopped her. I didn't say you can't go. Why do you have to be separated by life and death? Luo Qingtong frowned slightly. She stood up and looked at Yen Yang, who was pleasantly surprised. She suddenly raised her head and looked at her. Let's go together. Luo Qingtong killed Bai Jintang and stole the clear heart purple jade fruit and the thunder beast that the Bai family wanted. The enmity between them and the Bai family had long been formed. The fact that she didn't have family who was unavoidable. Now, with the addition of family whose matter and the map in their possession, sooner or later, they would have to face the Bai family. Since that was the case, this time family who wanted revenge, let's go together. With this thought in mind, Luo Qingtong walked out with the silver fox in her arms. Little Pig had already been stored in the 9-layer exquisite pagoda. That guy's strength hadn't recovered yet, so Luo Qingtong didn't allow him to wander around outside. She didn't want anything to happen to him. As for the silver fox, Luo Qingtong frowned. She originally wanted to store it in the 9-layer exquisite pagoda. After all, the 9-layered exquisite pagoda was the demon-subduing pagoda. It was extremely beneficial for the recovery of demonic beasts' auras and injuries. But when she tried, she didn't succeed. Could it be that this little guy had already been contracted by Yi Qianxian? Or was it because of the 10-directional dragon ring? As Luo Qingtong thought this, she touched the black dragon ring on the silver fox's paw. Although she was confused, she didn't think too much about it. Since he couldn't put it away, he would just put it in his sleeve. Otherwise, when she moved later, it would be difficult for her to use it. Moreover, he was also afraid of hurting the sleeping little fellow. As Luo Qingtong thought this, she put the silver fox back into her sleeve. At the same time, Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei were pleasantly surprised when they heard that Luo Qingtong wanted to go with them. But soon, they began to worry. Young master. Hu Zhongtian looked at Luo Qingtong and said, to tell you the truth, the Bai family's strength is one of the best among the middle-ranked families in Wildland City. And our family who has already fallen to the bottom of the middle-ranked families after all these years of decline. Although we have already recovered and improved our cultivation with the help of the young master, we still haven't recovered. But in terms of overall strength, our family who is still far behind the Bai family. This time, we father and son are going to die. But young master, you are different. You don't have to take the risk with us. Both of them looked sincere. Luo Qingtong saved their family who. Naturally, they didn't want her to be in danger because of their family whose grudge. Family whose strength was inferior to the Bai family. They didn't think that they would be able to return alive from this trip. They only wanted the Bai family to pay with their blood. How could they implicate Luo Qingtong? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.